Hey frag heads and fragrance lovers, welcome back. It's Benjamin here at the Centaur Fragrance Channel, coming back at you with another fragrance review. Today we're going to be talking about Orca from House of Matriarch. Now, first off the bat, straight off, this is just an ambergris scent. That's what you're getting here, but this is natural ambergris. This is real ambergris, and this is very nice quality indeed. If you've never came across ambergris, it's a byproduct from Wales. There's different grades of ambergris. There's black, gray, and white. As it ages and it gets kind of sun bleached, it becomes a little bit more clean, and ambergris becomes a little bit more of what a lot of us think is more as ambergris. Ambergris in most fragrances is synthetic because ambergris, especially the white variety of ambergris, the kind of ambergris that most people want that kind of smell in their fragrances, is extremely expensive, and it's the most popular and the most desirable ambergris of all. I don't know if white ambergris is in this fragrance. It might be more of a gray ambergris because there are some earthy, kind of heavier musky tones that come through in this fragrance in the dry down. It's a little bit darker in tone. I don't know if this is a black ambergris. I don't think it is, but it could be. Anyways, this is very authentic as a fragrance. It smells clean, it smells salty, it smells musky, and that's mostly what you get out of ambergris. And I just wanted to highlight the quality of ambergris and what ambergris really is, because in a lot of fragrances, most of it is synthetic. It's a synthetic molecule copycatting the real smell of ambergris. If you ever get to smell real ambergris, it's a lot more musky, it has a different body about it, it's more salty. If you've ever tried some of the Creed fragrances, some of them do have real ambergris dry downs. That's what makes Creed so classy, what gives Creeds longer longevity, and also a lot of sillage to some of their fragrances. Maybe some of the older batches of some of the fragrances give you a good amount of real ambergris to the fragrance. That's one reason Creed can kind of justify some of their prices. I digress. We're talking about House of Matriarch Orca. This fragrance, again, is named after orcas, which are also killer whales. It captures that sea salt vibe. It's supposed to capture the feel and the quality of the ocean in an authentic way. I think that this fragrance is pretty well done for what it is. It's kind of linear. It's just one note, but I mean, even though natural notes are just one note, there is a little bit more complexity here than what you would expect. It kind of dries down, and as it dries down, you kind of detect a little bit more of the saltiness at times, and it also does become a tiny bit earthy in its own way. But it's not overly complex as a fragrance. This is more of an experience. This is not. With this fragrance, it doesn't really have as much of a top note. It doesn't really jump out to you in a big way. It doesn't really, like citruses can jump out at you and be really bright. Again, acts more of like a musk. It acts much like a bass note and a supporting player to a fragrance. So expect this to have be more of a second skin scent, very close to the skin, very subtle, but people can detect it on you if you walk past people or if you sit in the same place for a long enough time. But it's not going to get you a lot of attention. It's just going to smell more like a second skin in a very interesting, high quality, salty, musky way. It smells very nice, and I really do like the smell. But we'll talk about value later on in this review. But very good fragrance. For the price and for the quality, it's hard to get real ambergris. I have smelled some with real ambergris. There's one of them that I believe it's from the brand Initio. They have one that captures the real smell of ambergris as well. But as far as real ambergris fragrance goes, there's just not a lot of them out on the market, and they are expensive for what they are. So longevity wise, I told y'all projection isn't very strong at all. I would say it's below average. Sillage is more on the average side. Even though there is sillage here, it's not particularly strong on the sillage. But the thing is that it's very consistent. It's very persistent in that sillage. So this fragrance actually does last a good while. It's going to last you, I think, 5 or 6 hours. But if you expect a lot of performance out of a fragrance, like a modern designer fragrance that's very meant to shout and grab a lot of attention, you might think that this fragrance disappears and is gone almost immediately. Fragrance doesn't have a lot of presence overall. It's very safe, it's very subtle. You could easily get away with this at a doctor's office, as a doctor, as a nurse, in a professional situation, or in any type of situation where people might be very sensitive to fragrances. I think that this is a great fragrance for those kinds of situations. Another good thing that this fragrance can do is be layered with other fragrances. Would be great to add a very interesting musky kind of quality and a little bit of saltiness to any type of fragrance. This could probably easily be blended with most fragrances. Um, Compliment factor wise, people often don't, aren't going to really compliment you on your fragrance, perhaps with a fragrance like this. With like any musk fragrance, people are just going to think that you smell naturally very nice. They might not even think that you're wearing a fragrance, so they might just compliment you. They might just say you smell good. They might not ask you what perfume you're wearing or think that you're particularly wearing a fragrance. And it's so subtle. It does smell kind of like natural skin in a way. I think that they might just appreciate you a little bit more and think that you naturally smell very nice. So I didn't get a lot of compliments. People might treat you a little bit better, but this isn't going to get smelled and noticed a lot unless you really spray yourself. This is quite a subtle thing in my opinion. It's not a very strong fragrance with a lot of presence in my opinion. Price wise and final thoughts, you all know that House of Matriarch fragrances are not cheap. They're 50 mils for $300 odd. Sometimes they do have limited sales for $150 for their 50 mils, 50% off sales, which are great, but it makes you kind of wonder if they can do those sales sometimes. It makes you wonder, what are these fragrances worth? Are they worth $150, and can these fragrances be sold for $150 and still make profit? Are they worth $300? I'm not really sure. I don't know the price and the quality for the ingredients. I don't know if this fragrance is really worth it. I think that this is an interesting concept to capture the smell of the ocean. If this fragrance is called Orca, when I think of Orca and when I think of killer whales, I think of something stealthy. I think of something strong, intelligent, and also has a big body to it. So I would have liked to see more of like maybe ice accords, because killer whales are often in cold areas, hunting seals around icebergs, but they do travel globally. I would have liked to see something with a little bit more, maybe because of, the ice and they have to be insulated. Maybe something with an interesting fat, more maybe like a butter accord to this fragrance. I would have liked to see maybe like a little bit of white violet or white vetiver, something adding a little bit more character and complexity to this fragrance. Again, to me, this is more of a layering fragrance, and for that price, for $300 for 50 mils, no matter how much the quality, no matter how good it smells, for a layering fragrance, for me, $300 for 50 mils for a layering fragrance is just not something that I fathom is practical or something that is kind of reasonable. I do think that the smell's nice. I do think it is a good smell, and I do think it's well crafted. But even for $150 for 50 mils, for a layering fragrance, a fragrance that you layer, or that's kind of smells like a second skin kind of smell, to me, that's just not something that I reach for. I know that there's economies of scale. For some people, they absolutely love white ambergris or just ambergris in general, and they might buy a fragrance and douse themselves in a very expensive, very rare ingredient, and they might think that that's perfectly fine. I think for the average person, this is a complete not a miss in the sense, not in the sense that it's a bad fragrance, but in the sense that it's not practical. It smells beautiful. It's very well done. I wish that I had the kind of money that I could go out and put 10 sprays of this on and not have a care in the world. But 10 sprays of this fragrance might cost you, $10. It's just not something that's very practical. It might cost you $5. I don't know. It's going to be expensive, no doubt about it, every time you go out. And even with 10 sprays of this fragrance, you might not get noticed that much. It's just not a strong fragrance. Anyways, this is my review. I'm not trying to beat up on this fragrance, but I do want people to know that this fragrance is very close to the skin and very much a personal fragrance. So anyways, my friends, I hope that you liked the review today. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share the video, tell a friend, and let me know, have you tried this fragrance? What do you think about it? And I'll see you next time, my friends. Have a good one, and bye.